G'day legends. Now, ever since UFC Fight Night versus Blanchfield, some really interesting things have happened in the UFC that have sort of just slid under the radar. The obvious one of them is Tom Aspinall going on DC and Chael Sonnen's show, Good Guy and the Bad Guy, and, memeing around and joking that Jon Jones is retired. I'm not going to be talking about him anymore. But there was a little bit of news that dropped on Aaron versus Blanchfield UFC Fight Night that you probably missed because you were asleep during that fight night. It was horrible. But in this video, I'm going to be giving you my theory of what I believe is happening right now in the UFC heavyweight division and how we are now in the end game of the Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall saga. And the UFC have just made essentially a major move in this chess game that is the negotiations going on between Jon Jones and the UFC, and it's playing out before our very eyes. So I'm going to present exactly what happened, and then I'm going to give you what I believe is going to be happening, and that's going to be today's video. Let's get into it thusly. So, if you haven't seen it yet, it's Chael Sonnen versus DC, the podcast. There's a lot of rambling going on. So to give you the Cliff Note, this is essentially it. Jon Jones is, Tom Aspinall is saying, John, he's retired. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I can't do the Tom Aspinall accent. I can't do it. But guys, do you even follow John on social media? I'm the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. I am ready to take on all comers. And this was very much the thrust of the interview between DC, Chael Sonnen, and Tom Aspinall, was the fact that Tom Aspinall wants to get the division moving. And no one in the heavyweight division is actually getting up and fighting, because any day now, this news about Jon Jones could drop and any one of them could be up and needing to step in for a title fight. So Jon Jones sitting around in Thailand sipping coconuts isn't just holding up Tom Aspinall, but Cyril Gane doesn't want to book a fight. Volkov doesn't want to book a fight. Almeida doesn't want to book a fight, because if Jon Jones just says no tomorrow, any one of their names can get pulled out of a hat. And if they've already got fights booked up, like Magomed Ankalaev did against Alexander Rakic, then they're obviously not going to be available to fight Tom Aspinall. So this has put a hold on the entire division. And Tom has said it's time to get this division moving. But that wasn't the most interesting thing that Tom said. Tom said that he has got a fight date, that he knows exactly what is going to be happening in the heavyweight division. And he again reiterated that he doesn't care if it's Tom Aspinall. Obviously, he doesn't care if it's Jon Jones or he doesn't care if it's Cyril Gane. He has dreamed of being the heavyweight champ since he was 10 years old. He is going to become the heavyweight champ, whether Jon Jones is attached to that or not. Now, here's where things get interesting, and here's where my personal conspiratorial hat, my dot connector hat, starts to jump on this. Something that a lot of people are noticing is that this news obviously got posted on DC and Chael Sonnen's show, which happens over at ESPN MMA. But it didn't just get dropped there. This was one of the rare episodes of Good Guy versus Bad Guy where it actually got dropped on the official YouTube page of the UFC. This is the UFC promoting Tom Aspinall, saying that Jon Jones is retired. Now think about this switching of stance that has gone on here. Not a couple of weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, maybe within the last 2 months, Dana White couldn't even say Tom Aspinall's name. Remember when he was doing that live Q&A on his Instagram and they started talking about the heavyweight title fight and he said Jon Jones versus Jon Jones the heavyweight fight is going to happen, guys. Or even a couple of weeks before that when he was on ESPN MMA and they were saying, the best fight, the best. Jon Jones, there's so many good fights out there for him. What about Alex Pereira? They have been avoiding saying Tom Aspinall's name ever since the Stipe Miocic fight happened to try and work with Jon Jones and get him some leverage. And now, after the 2 weeks of sheer backlash that has come from the fans and needing to fill in fight cards, all of a sudden the UFC dropped this video where it's Tom Aspinall saying, I am now the undisputed heavyweight champion. And this is all happening. Why do I bring up last weekend's Fight Night card? Because this is all happening as the exact same time as UFC Noche, UFC 320, has been cancelled as a pay-per-view. This information got dropped on the Blanchfield card. UFC Noche Fight Night card. UFC Noche Fight Night card. The third annual UFC Noche will now take place at the Frostbank Center in San Antonio, Texas on September 13th. The Noche Fight Night card will celebrate and honor the remake and the rest of it, and so on and so forth. So what do we have? We have in the last 48 hours the UFC cancelling a pay-per-view Now they're going to need to put on a completely different pay-per-view in a completely different city with a completely new main event. We have the UFC... We have Jon Jones appearing on the UFC's YouTube channel saying that he knows about a date. We also have information, not in the last 48 hours, but over the last couple of weeks, that Ariel Helwani has got these insiders inside the UFC, and he is assuring us that it's not Dana White's fault. Again, the impact of that, if you're new around here, which is fine, but if you're new around here, Ariel Helwani hates Dana White. Ariel Helwani would love to say that this is Dana White's fault, but it's not the UFC's fault that's holding him up. I believe that where we are right now is that they are rebooking UFC 320, working out something completely new, which is going to involve Tom Aspinall, maybe against Cyril Gane. And we are at the stage where the UFC is going to wait for Jon Jones to finish up in Thailand within the next 2 weeks, and it is going to be very much a Jon, shit or get off the pot. We will strip you if you do not fight Tom Aspinall, at least at Madison Square Garden in November, but it is time to get the fight signed on the dotted line. And what they have done now is they have moved their public negotiation. They have moved their piece across the chessboard, which is signaling to the entire world, we, the UFC, are now ready to open the gates of Tom Aspinall. We have Tom Aspinall there, and we are getting the division moving on without you. Talking to DC and Chael is not a mistake from the UFC interim heavyweight champion. They are essentially the voices of the UFC. They are the voices on ESPN. ESPN is the distributor of the UFC. And now we've gone even past that, something that I've said before, where Chael Sonnen, when he's speaking on ESPN, is the voice of the UFC. Now they are quite literally being the voice of the UFC. This is essentially a UFC video of Tom Aspinall signaling to Jon Jones, we're ready to book in the UFC card, UFC 320. And here's the interesting thing. If you're Jon Jones, you might let this happen. Honestly, if you're Jon Jones, you might let the heavyweight division just move on without you. Think about this before, right? Like this is Jon Jones has done this before. This is almost Jon Jones's entire MO, is to just sort of let divisions clear out the killers and then come back in and sweep up after all the dust has settled, right? Jon Jones is 37 years old. He's born in July. So Jon Jones at being 37 years old, Jon Jones can walk back into the heavyweight picture in 2.5 years' time, in a year and a half's time, just before 40, which for heavyweight is not that bad. 40 years old for heavyweight is not that bad. And a lot can happen between now and 40 for Jon Jones. Tom Aspinall, he wants to be busy. He wants to fight every 6 months. Heavyweights don't retain the belt that long. There's a reason that Stipe Miocic holds the record, because heavyweight, the changing of title hands at heavyweight happens a lot. So if you're Jon Jones, you can fight Tom Aspinall now, while he's as dangerous as he is going to be. Or you can sit back for a couple of years. If you're Jon Jones, you get more tape study on Tom Aspinall. If you're Jon Jones, there's a risk that Tom Aspinall could get knocked out. As much as I love Tom Aspinall, he always keeps his chin in the air. He's always getting touched on that fucking chin of his. He doesn't know how to tuck his chin and move forward. He fights like a British boxer on a bloody poster from the 1920s. Chin out, marching into death itself. And if Tom Aspinall gets chinned between now and by the time Jon Jones turns 40, Jon Jones can always just sit back and laugh and say he was never good enough to fight me in the first place. Tom Aspinall has sat around for a year, wasting his career while Jon Jones has laughed at him, maybe with absolutely no intention at all of fighting him, until he's at least 40, when Tom Aspinall is a little bit more battle worn down. What if Tom Aspinall cops another injury, hurts his back again, hurts his knee again, and then Jon Jones puts his hands up and says, I'm ready to go in 8 weeks' time, and starts getting Tom Aspinall to move to the beat of his drum? This isn't a crazy idea for Jon Jones at all. This is the sort of route that Jon Jones would take if he feels backed into a corner. So essentially, I think what has happened is, in the last couple of hours, the UFC event at UFC Noche has to have gotten moving. The UFC now have to come up with an entirely new pay-per-view out of nowhere that they were not expecting to come up with. The UFC have already been scrambling trying to get through International Fight Week without having their heavyweights on the line, and they are having enough of the backlash that they are getting from Jon Jones, and also recognize that it's time to get the heavyweight division moving. Because not only is Tom Aspinall not signing on the dotted line to fight for an interim title again, but now none of the top 5 heavyweights are signing on the dotted line. Remember last year when we had UFC England, at least you had Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane fighting for the interim title. Now that's not even happening. The UFC heavyweight division has come to a complete standstill, and we got to get things moving. So it has now come time for the UFC to tell Jon Jones to shit and get off the pot, and that is the reason why Tom Aspinall is saying, I have a date in mind. He does have a date. They have probably given him 2 dates. They have probably given him UFC 320, UFC Madison Square Garden, and we are finally going to get that answer back from Jon Jones within the next 2. This is the last stage of the negotiation. We're in it now. We're in the last stage of the negotiation, and the UFC are now signaling to Jon Jones that they are ready to walk away. But that is that. That is my take on everything. Is that it? Is that my take on everything? Yes, that is my take on everything. That's the reason why I think we got that interview. If that's your first time here, g'day, welcome. My name's Dougie. I make an MMA video every single day of the week, and I try and go live at the very least 3 times a week. If you want to know when all that happens, hit the subscription button down there, hit the notification bell to know when I go live. If you like the video, leave a like. What do you think about my read of the situation? What do you reckon? Am I well off? Am I on here? Let me know about that down there in the comments. Who do you think Tom Aspinall will fight next? Jon Jones next or Cyril Gane? Let me know about that down in the comments. And if you're one of the paying members of the channel, thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of you. Your names are up on the next slide, and I'll see you all in the next video.